what he thinks about all day long. You and I are what we think about all day long. Tell me, what do you think that means for virtually every 13-year-old boy? Well, I want to tell you what it meant for at least one 13-year-old boy today. This 13-year-old boy was sitting in a chair in a doctor's office. And in the chair next to him was his mother. His mother was a strong woman. She had 5 children, and the boy next to her was her youngest son. They were waiting on the doctor to come in. As they sat there waiting, the boy noticed that the mother's face did not have her normal game face on. She usually had a smile and she could hide the turmoil that was going on in her life. But today that game face wasn't there, and he could tell that she was upset and concerned about what the doctor might have to say when he came in the room. As they sat there, the mother's thoughts wandered back in time to a period 6 years before, when the boy was 7 years old and they were sitting in the doctor's office, and the doctor came in and gave them some very bad news. The doctor came in and told the mother that based on his assessment of the boy, he was going to recommend that she find a permanent institution in which to keep him, because the boy would be unlikely to ever survive independently in normal society. Now, think about that for a moment. Think about how that mother's heart must have been broken. What would you do if you were told that about your child? But the mother had 5 children, and one of the things that she had learned during the course of her motherhood was that you take the words of experts with a healthy dose of skepticism. So she and her boy walked out of the room that day, determined to find some method of getting her son to work better, so that he could function in society. You see, he had seizures dozens of times every day. And they didn't think that they would ever be able to cure the epilepsy, but they knew that if they tried hard enough, they'd be able to find some way of controlling the seizures or mitigating them so that they would be able to allow them to function. So as they walked out and started going through that process, it was the beginning of a long 7-year journey of trying to find the right solution for the problem. And it was right about that time that the doctor walks into the office, he closes the door behind him, and he comes in, and he sits behind his desk. And he peers over his glasses, first at the young boy and then at the mother, and he said, "At last I've got some good news for you. The last time you were here, we cut the dosage in half and there have been no recurrence of symptoms. Today, I'm comfortable that we can eliminate all prescription medications and assume that the seizures are not going to reappear, that your boy has outgrown the epilepsy." Well, what a relief that was for them. The mother and her boy, my mother and I, walked out of that doctor's office that day believing that we had finally a new lease on life. The 7 years of taking drugs and dealing with all of the side effects of those drugs was really a horrendous experience. But now we had a new experience. And I thought very positively up until the first day I got back into school. And that's when I discovered that the social stigma that had been built from the time that I was in first grade to the time that I was in 8th grade didn't disappear just because the prescriptions stopped coming, just because I didn't have to take medication, just because I didn't have the actual problem before. The people who grew up with me, knowing that I was the mentally deficient person that had to take drugs to keep from going wacko, the teachers knew that I had such severe learning disabilities I couldn't be taught. And that didn't go away just because the doctor said I was okay. So by the time I got into high school, I was 16 years old, and I talked it over with my parents, and I said, okay, enough. I'm not going to go through this anymore. High school is not an environment where I can ever do anything. I'm not going to be a great, smart, learned person. I'm not going to be anything other than a menial laborer, so I might as well get started. So at the age of 16, I dropped out of high school and I started pumping gas. I was resolved to accept the life of mediocrity that stood in front of me. But then that's when something remarkable happened. That's when I got away from that toxic environment in high school where everybody's thoughts about me were negative. And I got around people that didn't realize that I was mentally deficient. They hadn't been told that I had to take drugs to keep from going crazy. Instead, they treated me like an actual person, a person with thoughts and ideas. They shared ideas with me, and they listened to me as I expressed my ideas with them. I started reading books. I started going to the library and going to the bookstore, and I found the words of Napoleon Hill, who said that a man is what he is because of the dominating thoughts that he permits to occupy his mind. And I want to repeat that in case you want to write that down. A man is what he is because of the dominating thoughts that he permits to occupy his mind. That word permits is very, very important. You permit the thoughts to go through your mind. So once I started changing the thoughts in my mind, my life changed in a very dramatic way. And it didn't take a long time. In fact, within a year, less than a year, I was taking the GED so that I could enter college. I was getting into college a full year before my fellow classmates had gone through high school and finished high school. So now the boy with severe learning disabilities was suddenly becoming something of a wunderkind. And I took business classes and accounting classes, and then I found the computer classes. And I fell in love with programming computers, and I had enough understanding about business from my other classes that I found that I was very effective at programming business computer systems. So effective that as I was going through college, I was also working part-time for other people, running their databases and programming their computers. And then, before I could finish college, I was offered a job to actually get into the workforce with a full-time job as a programmer. So I said, okay, enough. No more school, go out and start working. So I started working. And that began a 15-year career where I programmed computers, I managed databases, I became a business analyst. I helped customers of all sizes, small businesses of all small business sizes, operate more effectively and use the technologies that were available in order to become more profitable, reduce their costs. And that was great for 15 years. And then after 15 years of programming computers, I said, enough. I didn't want to work with anybody else, for anybody else. Instead, I hung a shingle out on my door and I became a self-employed, independent technology consultant. And for 20 years, over 20 years, I ran my business, Ad Hoc Information Systems, until I looked back in 2015 and I saw that my 3 kids were all successful. They were all independently operating on their own. They were all financially responsible. They were all good citizens. And my wife and I decided, okay, enough. Let's go someplace else. Let's find the best place in the world. And we looked all around the country, and decided, let's go to Nashville, Tennessee. They've got the right kind of environment there where I can start a new phase of life. And in my retirement, I would start writing books and speaking. And so after 39 years of marriage, we just celebrated our 39th anniversary last month. My wife and I are happy. We're building a new life. And all of that came about because I was able to do what Norman Vincent Peale suggested. Norman Vincent Peale said, change your thoughts and you'll change your world. And that's exactly what I did, and that's what I want to encourage each and every one of you to do. I want you to think about the things that you think about all day long. Because the things that you think about all day long are, in fact, the thoughts of your lifetime. And ask yourself, are the thoughts of your lifetime drawing you into a life that you want, that you're excited about? If they're not, change your thoughts and you can change your world. Thank you.